Hello everyone, we were just load shed in Cape Town at 12 o'clock just as Eskom had scheduled, and it's important to understand the difference between load shedding and when you actually get rationed with electricity so that Eskom can build up reserves. And they have to build up reserves in numerous ways. They build up reserves for their diesel plants, which are peaking plants, and then they also build up reserves for pump storage schemes. And I'll explain just now why that is important. Now, load shedding is not something that government can prevent, and I need to make that clear to you. When Eskom load sheds, when it's real load shedding, it is to protect the grid from becoming unstable and actually collapsing. So load shedding is an absolute necessity, and it's important to distinguish the difference between load shedding, which is necessary to keep the grid stable, and actually rationing electricity to people, like Eskom has said that they're doing now to build up diesel reserves. This could still be important, but I'll explain to you just now. If the grid should collapse, you actually need a source of electricity to start the grid back up. And there's two places within South Africa that has that black start capability. Two main places, and that is Drakensberg as well as Koeberg Nuclear Power Station. So if there's a nationwide blackout, both Koeberg units have the ability to house load, which means that they just the reactors still run. The reactors are still critical, they're not scrammed. The generators are still running, supplying their own internal power. And none of the coal-fired power stations can do this. That power station can then be used to rebuild the grid, because you need electricity to actually energize the breakers and the boards at the substations, and then start energizing regions from there. And use that power to restart the other power stations that actually need auxiliary equipment to run, to actually fire up the boilers, etc., to get them going. Now, knowing that Koeberg has this ability, and especially nuclear power stations of their design, makes the need for something like Koeberg in future very important. So that is why I've always supported 2 more units to be built to replace Koeberg on the exact same site, so that no other infrastructure is necessary except for the nuclear power stations themselves. And for this purpose, Koeberg doesn't only anchor the grid down in Cape Town to stabilize the grid, it's also the cheapest form of electricity on the Eskom power grid currently, and the cheapest form of electricity altogether with regards to how much it costs, cents per kilowatt hour. Besides that, we have Drakensberg, which is a pump storage scheme. Now, when the Drakensberg top dam, because it's pump storage, it lets water run down from a top dam through the generators into a bottom dam. When there is a non-peak time, we use more electricity than was generated to pump the water back up to the top dams. But the value of that electricity that you use is far less, because it's not during peak time. And this is how pump storage schemes actually generate their money. That when they do generate, the electricity is worth a lot more, because there's a lot more demand for it. So all pump storage schemes work on a negative electricity basis. In other words, they don't generate more than they actually consume, but money-wise, the electricity is more valuable. But there's a reason why Drakensberg is even more valuable. Drakensberg is black start capabilities. In other words, if Koeberg doesn't have successful house loads, we can actually use the Drakensberg generators to also start the grid up from scratch. In other words, open up the valves, let the turbines run up, and then get the power station to supply power to the grid to start up other power stations, other coal-fired power stations, etc. And they can then be used to start up the rest of the fleet and rebuild the grid. And this would be critical if a complete grid blackout should happen in future. So there is a level in the top dam at Drakensberg beyond which we dare not go, because if we do, then you lose black start capability. In other words, there's not enough water left for Drakensberg to actually do black starts. And it's important to understand that it's possible for Koeberg to have a failed house loading situation on both units. And if that is the case, we would rely on Drakensberg. There's some gas turbines that could also be used for this. But if they're out of fuel, then we're also in a bad situation. And Eskom claimed now that they were trying to recuperate the fuel situation at these gas-fired stations. So Drakensberg water level is important. Drakensberg is many times run past and beyond the black start capability, which means that the water level goes below where it needs to be, and it needs to be replenished as soon as possible. So when load shedding is implemented, then it's not for grid stability. It's to make sure that if something happens in future, that we have black start capability available. So just remember, any normal load shedding is an absolute necessity. There's no politics involved. There's no government that can tell you what to do. These are professionals working at Simmerpan that will take actions on the national grid and even regional grids to protect and stabilize the grids within the area. This has nothing to do with politics. When it goes beyond that, then politics can get involved, except for black start capability, which is still Eskom's responsibility. When government has their fingers in the pie and they want to tell Eskom what to do, this is bad news. We don't want this at all. And if you go and watch my videos in the past that I've made on Eskom, Koeberg, and government getting involved, then you will get an idea. Those videos haven't had many views because I didn't do them as double ODES, but I created a playlist where you can certainly go back. I go into a lot of detail on what load shedding is and why we do load shedding, how we try and protect grid frequency at 50 Hertz. And if we get to 47.5 Hertz, all generators on the grid will literally separate to protect themselves. We'll be in a full blackout condition. And we want to avoid this at all costs. So I'm in a load shedding situation now. I'm using my phone to come to you. I have a battery charged recording device attached to the phone, as well as a battery supplied lapel. Now, these systems that I have is 4 times like this. I'm still independent. I don't need the grid. As long as there's an internet connection to my phone, I can upload videos to you. And I will keep on doing that in future. My next video will be on the virus being airborne, the SARS-CoV-2 virus being airborne, and explaining what that actually means in scientific terms. So this has got nothing to do with virology, it's got to do with contamination, and it's something that I was trained in at Koeberg. We spent a lot of time training how to not contaminate things, and I'll be able to explain that to you in a little bit more detail within my knowledge base. I won't go outside of what I actually know, but this is not rocket science, it's actually common sense. And I will highlight to you where government goes wrong when they actually just speak about masks, where they just speak about airborne, the virus being airborne, and not actually qualifying what that means. So you can look forward to that video. Watch this video. I won't have a thumbnail on this one at this stage, so the description will hopefully be good enough for you to share these videos with your friends and family. Please subscribe to this channel, click the bell icon to get notifications. I'll be having many meetings within this week and I look forward to that. So thank you for your support and all your messages. Till the next video.